Should Lue Elizondo remain the face of the modern UAP disclosure movement going forward? It's a complicated answer with some very hard and even maybe a few ugly parts to it. I've interviewed Lue Elizondo and I found him to be a very likable and very knowledgeable person. He seems very genuine, the sort of fellow you'd have beers with on a Sunday shooting the breeze. But there's more to this. This is about context to understand the bigger picture at work for all of us. Apart from his role as the unofficial spokesperson for UAPs, he is also probably the most vastly misunderstood personality in the public sphere relating to any government issue. Elizondo is different because of what he knows, what he really knows. And it is as multi-sided as a Rubik's Cube. There are so many components to consider. UAPs, those actual crafts that are being seen in space, the sky, and even the sea, well, it's not the half of it. Knowledge is the ultimate power in any situation, and Elizondo is carrying the mental equivalent of Thor's hammer. Now, Lou's ability to apply the core understanding of the broader UAP issue to the finite intricacies of human behavior, well, that comes after spending years on the front lines inside places your nightmares never want to visit. Well, it teaches you a lot about human behavior. Lou isn't just some former counterintelligence man. And one of the most interesting pieces of context for the UAP issue is Elizondo's time helping run Camp 7 inside the infamous prison in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Camp 7 was the most secure area of Guantanamo Bay. That was a CIA-run camp whose existence was denied for the first couple of years it was in operation. It cannot be overstated the significance of the man who ran the Gitmo of Guantanamo Bay, which is where the CIA's and other lettered agencies' most prized targets were processed. When you end up in hellholes like Camp 7 in Guantanamo Bay or somewhere like Diego Garcia, no one's coming to get you, and no one will save you. The only bridge to your freedom was someone like Lue Elizondo. Now, imagine what you learned from the most dangerous mouths on Earth that never wanted to talk, but they talked for you. Imagine what you can learn. Imagine what you can learn about people. So how does Lue Elizondo go from being one of the government's most important counterintelligence operatives, who was the senior camp counselor at an unacknowledged CIA squeeze house, to warden of an unacknowledged UAP program, one that was designed to be a smokescreen for the real UAP program? Well, you might make sure that that program is run by someone who is a Black Ops Zen master like Lue Elizondo. This is about knowing how to play chess while swapping pieces on the board your opponent never sees. Whether it's operating around the destabilizing of governments, fomenting revolution, or taking on drug cartels, each of these areas that Elizondo has been involved with is about leveraging people, specifically emotions. Now apply that vast knowledge about humans to the biggest story in the history of civilization, and that's how you end up with Elizondo running a program that is meant to be cover for the real program, OSAP. A program that Elizondo was not a part of nor took part in its works or research according to the book Skinwalkers of the Pentagon, which includes co-author George Knapp. So what other roles could he serve in that capacity, and for what purpose, given his very specific background? Well, having an unfettered grasp on certain aspects of the true nature of our reality and our existence, well, that feels a bit like being the fish in the bowl and having no idea that it's Lou feeding us. Elizondo has been methodical and inordinately patient in scattering very prime information seeds with surgical precision to that vexing overload of social media, podcasts, and cable news segments. His masterful soundbites are always just enough but never too much. Lue Elizondo is not here to satisfy your curiosity. Lue Elizondo is here to spark it. That's how you re-educate a population. You empower them to feel like the journey is one they've decided to take themselves, not one they are being dragged down. That brings on resistance. That comes from understanding revolutions. The brilliance of his delivery is his colloquialism. He can speak to all socioeconomic layers of society and have his message penetrate. That is no accident. That is the mark of a top-tier media professional who also knows the details of his craft with the kind of encyclopedic knowledge rarely found on a university campus. Elizondo is very well educated. Elizondo is also the perfect vehicle for helping orchestrate social change as a result, without upending the apple cart and sending everybody running, and no longer paying their taxes. especially at the prospect of intelligent life beyond humans just around the corner. That is also a major consideration. This is about re-education without collapse. You need everybody to agree that getting up tomorrow and conforming to social order and the willingness to pay your taxes, specifically, is what keeps society's wheel turning, and it's one that we are all helping push in unison. But if you give people a chance for pause for thought that is too long and not constructive, and it is very quickly every person for themselves, it's game over. So, the messenger you choose sure as hell better not screw it up, ever. Nothing Elizondo says in public about UAPs is an accident, nothing. His words and deeds are driven by a deeper purpose, and it is one that we will likely never understand or fully appreciate, and to assume there isn't another layer at work at all times would be foolish. It is not to say that Lue Elizondo is someone who is working to be an arbiter of chaos or social destruction. Quite the opposite, in fact. This is a deeply patriotic man who has worn the uniform in service to his country. He has spent time in the theater of war, and he bears the scars, visible and non, of that treacherous journey that a person's mind, their soul, and their body has to endure in the chaos of war. Sacrifices made long before he was thrust onto the mantle of UAP disclosure. And everything he's done along the way, he's done in service to his country. So you get the sense that he is coming from a place of honest desire to do right by the American public and help people for what is coming. But that doesn't mean we're all on equal footing. Far from it. This is also about someone who is working with the purposeful intent of a much larger goal in mind. It simply comes with the job that he's got more cards up his sleeve than ones that are on the table at all times. It is the nature of the beast, not Elizondo per se. It really is just the job. But sometimes we practice deception for our benefit, not detriment, like hiding your passport around your neck or wearing fake diamonds, or hanging a reproduction of a Renaissance masterpiece to make sure that protesters can't vandalize it. Deception is a vast and swirling gray area of shifting boundaries. The UAP narrative is like that, including the story of Lue Elizondo. It lives in the gray, it's neither black nor white. Even inconsistencies with a slew of media articles in 2017 when UAPs first burst onto the scene, the kind of mistakes like what ATIP actually stood for, the shift in start and end dates, funding. For something that should have a clear paper trail, it was more of almost an orchestrated chaos of obfuscation to hide things from those inside and outside the government. But does that even really matter? Perhaps not at all. After years of the Pentagon denying Elizondo was someone important with ATIP, lawsuits and backpedaling has established that he was there with his strong academic background in science, chemistry, biology. He was the perfect person for the job. This is about science as much as it's about people, coupled with things like exotheology and astrobiology. It's not anyone who can do this job. It takes someone very, very special. What Lue Elizondo's main purpose was with ATIP remains fluid. But what his purpose is for the rest of us is fairly clear. Lue Elizondo is a catalyst for change. Elizondo was able to articulate very complex scientific and UAP issues in a way that both laymen and scientists can appreciate, without seeming like an inaccessible government suit that people can't connect with. And that is the real value in the disclosure movement: accessibility. Lue Elizondo was a counterintelligence expert who lived in a world where the cultivation and nurturing of sources, agendas, and narratives is rooted in the strength of those human connections that you can make. And Elizondo is a human Lego brick that can connect with just about anyone, which means from hunters to Hutterites to Southern Baptists to elitist coastal artists. Lou is a universal adapter that connects to everyone, everywhere. As a messenger, he's near perfect. The shield of his past military service is the final Teflon coating that assures the air of patriotism and noble intent never leaves, and rightly so. He's earned it many, many times over. I'll say it again, this is a very patriotic American who deserves the appreciation of everyone for the things that he has done in service to his country. But if you're going to brand something or start a revolution, bring about change, you need consistency with messaging. You never give your audience a chance to be confused by what you're trying to say. Elizondo is a marketing master. He is able to compound his messages over time, but never with enough force to overshadow the objective or confuse the audience you're trying to shepherd. It is a deliberate and effective compounding effect, like standard military applications for learning tasks. You pile on and slowly build complexity as each task or stage is mastered. then you add another layer. UAP disclosure is the same thing, but it needs to be a steady hand at the wheel to guide this first and arguably most complex phase of social re-education about UAPs. Elizondo has said this process will take years, decades, to slowly unravel because of the multitude of moving parts involved. It is UAPs, energy frequencies, non-human sentient intelligence, existential threats, possible mind control or manipulation, interdimensional existence, time travel, simulation theories, not to mention the very, very uncomfortable truths that this also involves cryptids, creatures that thought to exist only in comic books and horror films. Crazy as it sounds, you cannot eat everything at once from this buffet. It has to be tackled with deliberate efficiency, but with gluttonous intent. In part 2, I will delve deep into some of the specifics of what Lou Elizondo has had to say, but more importantly, using all of these same points, I will argue why he is the best man for the job. I'm Sean. Thanks for listening. If you like the content, be sure to like and subscribe. I got great new stuff coming all the time. There's another great video coming up next.